All right, so welcome everybody. This is Zoom Tips and Tricks. I'm Allison Rogers from Clinton County Reset, and we're going to get started. So I thought we'd start with some humor. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Muppets, but I saw this meme the other day and I had to share. I feel like I've heard of the reference to we all look like the Brady Bunch when we're in grid view. Well, this kind of reminds me of the Muppets as well. So anyway, for today's content, I'm going to cover some tips and tricks kind of across the board. We're going to talk about some shortcuts to accessing Zoom. We're going to talk about the differences between the app versus the browser. I'm going to get into some setting features and talk about the fun virtual backgrounds you can use, give you some recording tips, change your profile picture, talk about Google Calendar integration, which is such a time saver, give you some tips for breakout rooms, meeting templates, video and chat tips, and then lastly, closed captioning tools. So let's begin. So just a couple things when you're accessing Zoom. And again, if you need more foundational information, I've got the Zoom recording for the beginners as far as access and account details, but we're assuming we're kind of moving beyond that right now. And you can start by either bookmarking zoom.us/signin, or you can use a Chrome extension called Zoom Scheduler, or you can use your shortcut within Gmail. So let me quickly show you those examples. So again, this Chrome extension, once you've added it to your Chrome browser, if you click that extension, it lets you automatically schedule a meeting right from here. So that's a nice little shortcut. And also within Gmail or Calendar, or even as you can see within my slide deck, I can click on, let's say I'm working in Gmail, and I click on this little Zoom for G Suite. So if I'm in my email and I want to get to Zoom, instead of having to log in manually in the browser, I can just click Zoom for G Suite. And it will load, and I will click the Visit Zoom option, and it takes me right to my Zoom page. And then I can join a meeting, host a meeting, or I can click on my account here, and it takes me to my Zoom profile page. So again, if you weren't logged in for some reason, it would have you log in, but this integration with Gmail is a nice little shortcut to get you to Zoom. All right, now let's get into the new stuff. So during the last training, we focused a little bit more on the browser of Zoom, and there's two ways to access Zoom, right? You can log in within the app or within the browser. And there's a couple things that you can do only in the app, so that's why I want to focus a little bit more on those settings today, but we'll be kind of jumping back and forth. So if you were to, probably many of you have been doing both, but if you have only been using the browser, if you were to click on this little link up here, it will take you to a place to be able to actually download the Zoom app to your computer. So then that way you can come down here and click on Zoom, and this is what it looks like when you are actually logged into the app. So this is the app versus the browser, okay? So if you are navigating between either one, that's fine, but there's certain things you can do within the app only. Okay, so let's talk about specifically the Zoom app today as far as settings. So let me show you a little bit of navigational features there. So I'm going to jump into my app, and you can see that I've got a couple different options. I can click on this little gear icon to take me to my settings. I can, up top here, I've got some options for just like quick access to meetings. I can schedule from here. You can see that I have a meeting in progress. But I'm going to start by just clicking on the settings, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So under general settings, I've got a variety of different options. Now I'm not going to go through each different setting here, but I just want to make sure you are aware that you can go through and you can alter these however you see fit, right? So you might want, for example, the Zoom app to remind you 10 minutes before your upcoming meeting. So you can personalize this as much as you want. And I would recommend playing around with some of the settings before you have a meeting, right? So kind of test it out, see what it looks like, start a sample meeting, So then that's the best way really to get comfortable navigating Zoom and just utilizing the features as best as possible. So that's how we get to general. You can get to the video settings and personalize it that way. Audio, good way to check, you know, are you using the correct speakers and microphone? Share screen, again, personalize it however you see fit. Maybe you want to enter full screen when participants share screen, maybe you don't, maybe you want to be able to manually do that yourself. Chat, again, usually the default features here are fine, but if you want to change any of these, you just simply click the button and make sure it's highlighted. Okay, now let's jump to virtual backgrounds. I'm going to hop out here and go to my screenshot real quick because it's a little bit easier to see there. Okay, so virtual backgrounds. So you can see I'm in the settings of Zoom, the Zoom app, and under virtual background, you're probably, if you haven't used the app before, you're probably wondering, how are people changing the background within their picture or their image, right? I feel like on every call, you probably see somebody with a cool background, maybe it's some cool foliage, for example. But I'll show you how you can actually do that in your app, and then also you can do it while you're actually in a meeting, okay? So when I'm in the app itself, as I was earlier, let me hop back out. Again, I go to the gear, that's how I get to my general settings, and then I click on virtual background. And here is where I can select whatever background I want. You can see that there's 4 defaults, and then, you know, none is the default, but you can, you know, pick different pictures, for example, which don't exactly show me very well, but you get the idea. You can also click the add button, add image, and you can upload an image from your computer. So that's how people have gotten some of these really creative backgrounds, or you can decide to just use none, and that's your choice. So within, when I'm actually presenting, if I click on next to this, the stop video button, which I know you can't see, so that's I'm going to use this. That's a difficult part about navigating a tutorial on Zoom. Some of the features you actually can't see when I'm using them live, so that's why I have screenshots here. But so when you're in an actual meeting, if you click where it says stop video, don't click stop video, but click the little caret. You can select choose a virtual background, and then that will take you to this option of, okay, which one do I want to select from here? And so you can do it as like a default setting if you go into your virtual background and say, I want it to always be this one, but then maybe when you're in a meeting and you want to change it on the fly, this is when you would do it, where you click on the little caret. So you can play around with that. That's just kind of a fun feature. Now there are a couple recommendations. As you could see with some of the examples that I used, you could not see my face very well. And that is because behind me, there's a lot of light coming through my window. So it really works better when you have kind of consistent lighting behind you. And they recommend, you know, don't wear the same color clothing as the virtual background. So there's just a couple of, you know, reasons why you might not be able to see yourself when you have a background up. So obviously test those out before you start using backgrounds, especially in a more formalized setting when you're like, I really need to be seen here, right? So you can test those out by uploading different pictures and changing the lighting in whatever room you are in and the background and that sort of thing. So that's just some tips for using virtual backgrounds. Next is recording within the Zoom app. So those settings, let me jump to the live app real quick. Again, I go to my gear and under recording, I just wanted to point out that there is a default location that your Zoom recordings live, right? So if for example, I'm recording this session for those people that can't attend and want to view this later, and it will automatically go to this file on my computer. Now, if I wanted to click change, that's where I could change where, in fact, the recording of the Zoom session will live. So just so you know, Zoom defaults by making a folder for you and placing that recording in that folder. And I'll get to that a little bit later when I show you about the chat feature as well, but just wanted to show you that that is the default location. All right. Next, I believe, is we want to talk about recording tips. That's right. So this is something that I had to, I guess, learn the hard way. And that is when you are recording a session, and let's say you're working with students and you don't necessarily want to show their faces in the recording, right? There's going to be a time and place for those things, but let's say you want to record it and you don't want anyone's face to show, or even your face to show in the actual recording. That doesn't mean people will stop seeing your face in the actual session, but in the recording piece. So what you can do is when you are recording and sharing your screen, this little box will pop up, and there's usually 3 options. If you select this little button, it says select hide thumbnail video. This makes that box of where it would just be your face if you were talking, for example, it makes it disappear, and it makes everybody else's face disappear in the recording. So now it's only recording my voice and my screen that I'm sharing, not the faces within the Zoom app. So I had to test that theory out quite a few times to get that straightened out. But if you are looking to record a Zoom video without having to add another screencasting tool on top of it, this is my little tip for you. Okay, jumping around here. Next is profile. I mentioned this in the previous training, but more specifically, I'm going to show you how you can edit your profile, or different ways you can access that same piece. So if I go to the app and I go to settings and I go to profile, I can click on edit my profile, and it will actually jump me into, because you can see behind, it will jump me into the browser version of Zoom, and this is where I can change my profile and change the image. I just simply click here, and then I can, upload a different picture, click save, etc. So if you've noticed folks who maybe are in Zoom sessions and they are not sharing their video, but you can still see a picture of themselves, that's what they've done. They've added a picture to their profile. Next, Google Calendar integration. So I've got a couple tips with this and a couple different ways to really make this a seamless integration. So it would be kind of time consuming if you had to create a meeting in Zoom and then put it into Google Calendar, or create a meeting in Google Calendar and then have to put it into Zoom. With this integration, you only have to do it in one place, and it automatically talks to the other. So first and foremost, for this specific example I want to show you, you want to make sure that within your settings, you have this integration happening. So within your settings, you'll see an option for calendar and contact integration. And mine looks like this because I have already allowed Zoom to have access to my calendar events and to sync my contacts. So this little button has been enabled. You might see the option to do this, like these are turned off and it says, do you want to authorize Zoom to integrate with these pieces? My personal preference is that I do allow that. So then when I go to create a calendar event, I have the option to select a Zoom meeting as a conferencing option, not just Google Meet, right? The same thing goes for using this Zoom scheduler extension. If I were to add this to my Chrome, this allows me to be within a calendar event and gives me this make it a Zoom meeting button, and automatically allows that integration. So let me show you what that looks like in the actual Google Calendar. So if I go to my calendar and I'm going to create a sample event, right now I can put it give it a title, give it a time, and then I can either click the drop down of add video and conferencing and select Meet, or Meet, Google Meet, or Zoom meeting here, right? So if I do that, and I can click more options to see what it looks like in the event. Automatically creates an ID and a password and all that good stuff. So it defaults by creating a Zoom meeting. And what it will do is when I click save, it's going to create that meeting into my list of meetings here as well. And there it is, my test meeting. So that work is done for me. The same thing goes for if I were to create an event or a meeting and click make it a Zoom, it does the same thing. So you can use the extension to do this, or give the have that integration with calendar enabled, and you can click the drop down here. Now let's say you're in Zoom and you don't want to have to jump out to calendar. You want to create your actual event in Zoom and have it automatically added to calendar. There's an option for that as well. You just have to select add Google Calendar. So in the live site, and I'm jumping back and forth here, but if I go to meetings and I'm going to schedule a new meeting, I can fill in the details, and I guess I should probably maybe actually put in some sample information. Sure, sounds good. We'll just click save. And now, since I've enabled this integration, I can click add to Google Calendar. And when I do that, it opens up, well, asks me which account to use. And it will open up my Google Calendar to give it access permissions. And I will then see this event, my test event, and I see all of the details from the Zoom meeting are already in the event details. So what's awesome is it comes time for that meeting, I just simply click here, click join, and it will take me directly to that meeting. So a nice quick way to integrate with a calendar. You can also go into that event and you can copy the invitation and click copy. And then you could paste that into an email and send that to whoever. Or you could go into that calendar, click more options, and start inviting people. And they're going to get all of that information automatically and be able to join that event if this was the one I was actually in, this one. So the idea is these are time savers, right? This is seamless integration. If you're not a big Google Calendar user, but maybe you're a big Zoom user, I would start getting comfortable with both systems because they are going to really save you some time.
So Allison?
Yeah.
So if I wanted to send the Zoom link and not the whole invitation, I would just go into that profile page and I could just copy and paste that little Zoom link.
Exactly. So you go to your meetings, you go to whatever meeting it is, and you scroll down and you say copy invitation, copy meeting invitation.
But what if I don't want to copy it because we don't want, we just want the link. They don't want the whole meeting sent.
Oh, so then you can just literally copy this
Right.
URL and that will do the same
Perfect.
thing.
That's what I thought. I wanted to double check. Okay.
Yep, that's correct. Great question.
Thank you.
All right, so getting away from calendar integration, let's talk about some advanced settings, specifically the breakout room option. So within advanced settings, let me show you both ways to access this. So if I'm in the app and I click on my gear icon and I go to profile, I had to think about that for a second, and click view advanced features, it's going to, in the background behind me, or behind this here, it's going to take me to settings, and then I'm going to click on advanced settings. And I'm going to scroll down to where I see breakout room. And I want to make sure that this is enabled. So allow hosts to split meeting participants into separate smaller rooms. So essentially what a breakout room is right now we're in a big room all together. But if we had multiple people and we wanted to do like little mini conversations in different rooms, and then we can come back to the whole room, that's what a breakout room is called. So when this is enabled, then I need to say, allow hosts to assign participants to breakout rooms when scheduling. So what that piece does is allows me to even like anticipate what my breakout rooms might be. So that's a really cool feature. And that's the tip I'm going to focus on today is more so the how to do this in advanced. If you're interested in more specifics of like how to navigate a breakout room, that's a whole another ball of wax. That's a little bit more, I wouldn't say complicated, but there's a lot to that, and it's hard to demonstrate in a live training. But if you're interested, these are some really great help docs that can show you how to actually enable those breakout room pieces. But I think that the most important tip that I can show you is sort of that step one. And that is, well, before I get to that, I should probably mention there are some limitations for breakout rooms. So you don't want to go down a path and say, oh gosh, I have people using Chromebooks. So for example, you can't manage a breakout room from the mobile app. You can join it, but you can't manage it. So you couldn't be the host. You can't join a breakout room if you're using a Chromebook for whatever reason. So just duly note that. And then also you can only record the main room. So like we're in a main room right now, and if I was to send people to breakout rooms, you couldn't record those breakout rooms using the Zoom recording feature. You could only record the main room. And again, there's also just some maximum numbers of participants. I think those are hefty numbers, but just so if you're ever curious, if you've got larger groups, you want to break them out, those are the maximums. So back to what I was talking about. So this pre-assigning. So this is kind of like the quick tip I can give you without having you actually have done a breakout room before. So if maybe you're a teacher or you're working with a group of students or a group of adults and you want to create this sort of mini grouping so people can collaborate individually, and you already know who those participants are. So maybe it's like a class roster, for example. You can do a couple things to save yourself some time. So the first one is you can pre-create breakout rooms. So instead of being like, okay, I'm in a big meeting right now and I'm going to start creating breakout rooms, and that can take some time. Instead, I'm going to already create the rooms and then put everybody in them. So once I'm ready to enable, okay, let's start breakout rooms, that piece is already done. So what you do is under, when you're scheduling a meeting, there's an option to select breakout room pre-assign, and then that's what this looks like right here. So if I were to click on the create rooms button, so again, this is when you're scheduling an initial meeting. I click the create rooms, and then it takes me to this breakout room assignment. And this is where I can add multiple rooms, and I can manually type in the emails of my participants. So what this will allow me to do is when it's time to go into breakout rooms, I already have them set. Everybody is already predetermined what room they're going to go to. So that's great if maybe you have just a handful of people. But if you've got a lot of names, that's a lot of manually typing in of people's emails, right? Enter the import from CSV option. And this one is pretty slick. I would envision if you have a class roster, this might be for you. So what you can do is, instead of clicking that create rooms, you can click import from CSV. And then this box will open up and it will allow you to click browse. You can select the file that you want to upload. And then that file will automatically be entered into this breakout room assignment piece. And then you can make individual rooms based on the people that you've uploaded. One more addition that Zoom has done for you already is, let's say you're not super familiar with CSV formatting and how that file needs to look. They've actually created a roster template that looks like this. So it's basically, looks like an Excel doc. And you just have your room numbers here, and then you type in the email of the participants here. So you might already even have like a list of student emails or, colleague emails in a list. You just plop them in here, and then you know the formatting's correct. So when you upload it, you're good to go for the breakout room assignment. So let me show you what that looks like in a live situation. So what am I in? I'm in a test. Should probably, I'm gonna start a meeting because make it a little bit cleaner. Okay. So I can, okay, breakout room pre-assignment. This is, again, I created a new meeting, and I'm going to go down to where it says meeting options, and I select breakout room pre-assign. So if I were to click create rooms, this is where that screen shows up where I can, click a room and I can start typing in someone's email, and it puts them in that room. I can add a second room, make sure I'm highlighting in there, and then type in another person's name. So right now I can see breakout room, 1 room, this person's there, breakout 2, this person's there. And then I'd want to click save. Or if I want to import from CSV, I click that option, and here's where I can download the template, but I've already created one for this example, so I'm going to just say browse. And sample roster, so it's my CSV file. I'm going to click open. And now it has already put people into the appropriate rooms. So I've got 1 room with 2 people, room 2 with 2 people, room 3 with 2 people. So it's already done that work for me and broken it up. So I can't imagine this not being helpful for a class roster situation when you already know the groupings ahead of time. So you just again click save, and then once it's time to actually put people in rooms, you have that default setting already set up for you, and you just have that feature of you click breakout rooms, and then down here breakout rooms, and then you can navigate and add move people to different rooms. You can open the rooms, you can send messages to other rooms. There's lots of cool features you can do within breakout rooms, but that pre-assignment piece is what I wanted to focus on today. All right, next tip is meeting templates. I mentioned this briefly during the last session, but I wanted to show you kind of 2 pieces to this today. So meeting template, let's say you frequently create a meeting that is, weekly, or maybe it's something that is it constantly has the same settings. And you're like, gosh, I keep creating a meeting that, I wish I didn't have to type this in every time. So if I were to, let's say, schedule a new meeting, I have the option to create my meeting, and we'll just say save. And then now, once I've saved the meeting, if I scroll down to the very bottom, it says save as meeting template. If I click that, then it's saying, okay, you want to save all of the settings that you have here. So like, let's say I'm really specific on whatever settings. Like I really want to make sure every time I have this type of meeting, I want to be able to enable join before host or mute participants file entry, whatever those specifics are. Let's say I have a description that's very detailed. Instead of having to type that in every time, I can just simply click save as a meeting template, and then label it as whatever, and I click save as template. So now when I go to create a new meeting, schedule a new meeting, you'll notice that under says use a template, now I have the drop down for training, and it will automatically put in the same information, topic description, all of those settings that I had set up for that template. Boom, done. So you might want to think about how you're using Zoom, and maybe there's meetings that you're like, gosh, every time I have a meeting, I have to add in these specifics. Why not use it or create a template for that? And maybe even just use that as the foundation. That's what I do a lot with some of these trainings. In fact, you can see I've got a trainings for CC Reset itinerant staff template. So I've been using that, and yes, it's for Google Drive 101, but I just go in and slightly change a couple details, and then I know that I've got the same settings for each of those weekly meetings. So a nice time saver, and helps you stay consistent with the settings you are enabling. All right, I think we've got three more updates, or 3 more tips. The first is save your chat manually versus auto. I think we've all probably utilized the chat before, but did you know that you can actually click, so if you were to open up the chat in this meeting, for example, and you click in the bottom right-hand corner, there's like 3 little dots, and it should give you the option to save the chat. So you can do that, and that is the manual version of that, right? So if you're having great conversation or people are throwing in links, you're like, gosh, I want to access this later, save the chat. Maybe you're the host and maybe you keep forgetting to save the chat and you end the meeting and then it's gone. So to save yourself some time and some frustration, you can actually go into your meeting basics settings within Zoom, scroll down to where it says auto saving chats, and enable that. So then anytime you're hosting a meeting, it automatically saves the chat after the meeting. So you don't have to worry about clicking that save chat, it just does it for you. So you're probably thinking, okay, great, but like where does that chat file live? So another cool feature within Zoom is Zoom automatically creates a little Zoom folder for you on your computer so that when you save your chat here or you save your recording here, it does that for you. So when we finish this training and I end the meeting, it's going to pop up a little box that's like converting or uploading your recording. And all you have to do is go to your files, go to your documents, look for that Zoom folder, and then you'll see, you know, these are all the different recordings I have. And then you can go into individual folder and find the chat or the chat or the recording. So let me go to this one. And I've got the recording here. So that's where those live, if you're ever wondering, where
So
did my recording go?
do you have to enable something, Allison, to get that to work, or does it just automatically take that recording and shove it in there?
So you have to click the recording button for that to happen, but it will automatically put it in that folder. You don't have to do anything for it to go into that exact folder. Now for the chat, you have to enable what I just showed you with, you know, this feature, you know, automatically save the chat. But for the recordings, you just have to, you know, record your screen. And then once you end, it will pop it in that folder. You don't have to do anything differently that way. And I think I mentioned something back in, where did it go? Here. Under your recording within your app, those settings, if you wanted to change this folder from here, you would just simply go recording and then change and then pick, you know, a different location for it to live. But I like that it automatically creates a Zoom folder for me because I don't have to worry, you know, where to put it or where did I put that again? It puts it in the right place. All right, and I think the last tip I have for you today is closed captioning. Yes, so this is a pretty slick option, I think really important for us to know to be able to enable, and that is under your settings, advanced settings, you have the option to select closed captioning. So again, I'll show you where that is again. I go to my Zoom account and under settings, basic, and I scroll down to, or wait, did I say advanced? Yeah, sorry, advanced. And I scroll down to, here we go, closed captioning. I want to make sure that's turned on. I do not believe it is turned on by default, so I think you have to actually enable this. This allows hosts to type closed captioning or assign a participant third-party device to add closed captioning. So with Zoom, it's not going to automatically like create the closed captioning for you. You can assign someone to basically like take notes that would be service as closed captioning. And then you can also enable this save captions that allows you to like, just like you can save the chat, it would save the transcripts of the closed captioning. And what that looks like, I've got a screenshot to show you a little bit easier, is when you've enabled it for someone, or like this little box will pop up, assign someone to type. So you would assign the person. Again, I can't show you these tools in the live Zoom that I'm using. They won't record. But so you can assign a specific person, assign closed captioning. And then when they get that assignment, it will look like this. And so like down at the bottom, you see like chat, record, you will see a closed caption option. And then it's saying, hey, this person has assigned you the ability to do the closed captioning. And so then you would be like kind of like the note taker for closed captioning, right? Now, that's one option to use with Zoom. A second option that I'm pretty keen on is using Google Slides closed captioning alongside Zoom. So what you're doing here, in this screenshot I think illustrates it decently well, is if I were to use a Google slide deck, such as the one we're using right now, and I'm in present mode, if I click the captions tool and I start talking, it will, down at the bottom here, it will actually record what I'm saying, and pretty accurately, might I add. Now, so to integrate that with Zoom, all I have to do is just share my screen, right? So I'm sharing my screen, I'm enabling the closed captioning in my Google slide deck, and everyone's able to see the closed captioning. Now you lose the feature of, making a copy of the transcripts and things like that. But in terms of live seeing those transcripts or those, the captioning in real time, that's a cool use of kind of overlaying two products. So again, if I were to go into the live site or my live slide deck, I click present, and then I don't think you'll be able to see this, but there's a little closed captioning button that I can turn on, and then it starts recording exactly what I'm saying down at the bottom. And sometimes it's accurate and sometimes it's, kind of funny. But for the most part, this closed captioning tool within Google Slides really is a slick option. So with that, I'm going to take my own advice. I saw this the other day and I had to giggle. Sometimes it's time to wrap up, like at the Oscars. So anyway, I am going to wrap up and get to the chat box, but before you leave, make sure you complete the attendance form, and feel free to email me with any follow-up questions you might have, or if you need a little bit more one-on-one support. But I'm going to go ahead and stop my recording.